I walked into that training knowing I was one of the smartest people on the planet and walked out knowing I was simply one of the most arrogant. And being able at that age to see my own arrogance set me on a lifetime journey of being responsible for those parts of myself that were influencing me, my behavior, but were outside of my view.
Wow. Wow. How to feel in that moment? Were you crushed? Were you angry? Were you?
I was, that those realizations, it was, at first I was embarrassed. And then I tried it on and it felt true. And I felt like I had been given a gift to be able to see myself as other people see me. Many of us are legends in our own mind. And it's great to be able to see yourself as you're being seen by others.
Totally. Welcome to the Impact Effect podcast. My name is Jim Morris. I'm your host, and I am excited today. Alan Cahn is in the house, and ooh-wee, he is a man of many traits, characteristics, senior faculty member at Henley Leadership Group. He's known as the status quo disruptor, and he works with all types of individuals, teams, companies all over the world. So please help me welcome Alan Cahn to the Impact Effect podcast.
Thank you, Jim.
Man, I'm excited today, Alan. It's going to be a great episode, and I've been looking forward to this one, and very grateful to have you on the show. And as always, I ask every single guest the same question. What is the most impactful moment in your life that has changed everything for the future?
Yeah. I was thinking about that question when I knew you were going to ask it, and I had a couple of candidates. So I'm just going to say one. So I'm 26 years old. It's December 1976, and I'm in a 2-weekend training, human potential training called the S training in San Francisco. I had driven down to do it. And it's the third day of the training, and the trainer comes off the platform to address me because I had raised my hand. And he said, "Alan, I've been watching you for 2.5 days. And every time you raise your hand, you're doing one of two things. You're either trying to show that you're smarter than me, or you're trying to show that you're one step ahead of everybody else in the room." He says, "But I have news for you. Your tuition check has been received, and the check has already cleared the bank. And if you want to keep operating this way, be my guest." And a bunch of people laughed, and he walked away, and I sat down. And in that space of about 2 minutes, I kind of saw my life up until that point. And I saw that I had always been really out to prove something, prove I was smarter, prove I was better, and that underneath that were some deep concerns. So I walked into that training knowing I was one of the smartest people on the planet and walked out knowing I was simply one of the most arrogant. And being able at that age to see my own arrogance set me on a lifetime journey of being responsible for those parts of myself that were influencing me, my behavior, but were outside of my view.
Wow. Wow. How to feel in that moment? Were you crushed? Were you angry? Were you?
I was, that those realizations, it was, at first I was embarrassed. And then I tried it on and it felt true. And I felt like I had been given a gift to be able to see myself as other people see me. Many of us are legends in our own mind. And it's great to be able to see yourself as you're being seen by others.
Totally. That's like that reflection point, right? Where it's like you may just miss something that's so impactful and be going down a road this way, but realize there's that little tweak and you start to go this way, and then things start to open up. Perspective starts to shift.
Yeah. The way I say it is all of us wound up being a particular way. And no one is stuck being who they wound up being. But until you can name it and see the way you wound up being, you're going to be on automatic and thinking you're living your life fully, but all you're doing is repeating patterns that may have started at age 5.
Yeah. Yeah. Where do you think that came from? Why do you think you were wired that way to kind of come into that room? And where did you get like a lot of accolades? Were
Oh,
you like the highest IQ in your class growing up? Like,
quite the opposite. What I saw, and as I look back, is I was short growing up and not particularly as good in sports as the folks on my block. So I was often the last kid picked. They'd argue over, you have Alan on your team. No, you haven't. We haven't last time. And was picked on at times and developed this way of being was good. Well, if I can't be as good as they are in sports, I'll be smarter. So that was one theory. Another theory is, I watched my dad, and he seemed to be the most arrogant person in the room, so it rubbed off on me. But I truly don't. I'm less interested in why I wound up that way. It's more that I wound up that way, because I work with a lot of people, and knowing why you wound up that way doesn't necessarily loosen the grip. It just gives you some intellectual understanding about it. But how do you actually change your behavior?
yeah, how do you move through it?
Yeah. How do you create? I call it my operating system. How do you upgrade the operating system?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great lead into Alan. How did you upgrade your operating system?
Well, one is I got committed. So at that age, I got committed that my life was going to be about making a contribution to others. I didn't know how, but I knew that I wanted to honor the George Bernard Shaw quote, where he says something like, I want to be thoroughly used up when I die. Life is no brief candle to me. It's a kind of splendid torch that I have a hold of for the moment, and I want to make it burn as brightly as possible before passing it on to future generations. So my life became about being the best I can be. And then it became about how do I help others become the best they can be. And I put myself in different environments that would demand of me to be better so that I couldn't coast. Left to my own devices, I could coast and get by. But if I put myself in a structure that demanded of me always to be more, that was going to be a good structure for me to be in.
That consistent growth sounds like you're putting yourself in different proximity around people that you can learn from. You can take nuggets and add to your toolbox, but probably also seeing things that don't align or that you may not want to go that path as far as growth goes as well.
It's really critical what you're saying. When I started getting into the coaching business 13 years ago, I was in the training and development business for 32 years. And then when I set off as a coach, I discovered that there's 3 principles for permanent, sustainable change or transformation. And you need all three pillars. The first pillar is desire. You have to want to change. No one can make you. Two, you have to have practices, things that you do on a repetitive day in and day out basis. And this is the third one that most people don't know. You need to create an environment around you that supports you taking those practices. Just the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Why? Because good intentions don't move you into action.
Totally. You got to integrate. You got to take action. You got to move. You got to fail. You have to have humility, right?
And again, you need an environment, people, reminders, calendar alerts, things that you see throughout the day that remind you to take those actions. Gyms, health clubs, biggest time for them is January. They sell more subscriptions in January than they could handle. Why? Because by March, most of those people aren't going to be using the subscriptions. So just paying money, just having a membership, knowing where it is isn't enough if you don't have an environment that supports you taking those new actions.
Yeah, I found in my life so far, the integration piece, and having the motivation, the inspiration, the tools can only get you so far, right? It's someone, not something, that allows you to live to the highest capacity, to reach for the stars and have a plan to go and grab them, right?
Yes.
And in a world of AI today, in a world of all these different tools, these different solutions, services, those can get you so far, but you still have to log in. You still have to critically think. You still have to apply. You still have to use them at the highest level as well. And we're faced with distractions more than ever, they say, right? Now, when you were learning all this, did this come immediately after? Did this come over the years? What was the journey of figuring this out and navigating it?
It's great. Well, my wife and I have been married 47 years. And when we had our daughter in 1979, so that was 3 years after this experience, we saw an astrologer who did our charts and our daughter's chart. And I still remember Carol looking at me. This was 1979, 47 years ago. She said, "Alan, people with charts like yours usually wind up in prison or in the army because they need guardrails." So that was a humbling thing to hear, and I took it to heart. And 3 years later, I didn't go to prison and I didn't join the army, but I did go to work with an organization called EST, which then became Werner Erhard and Associates, and then became Landmark Worldwide. And I worked there 32 years. And that became the structure, because no matter how well I performed, there was always someone looking and saying, "What's next? What's next?" So they knew there was no top to the mountain of what's possible. And I developed some practices. I would have an occasion in my calendar where every Sunday I would review 7 areas of my life: finances, relationships, health, work, 7 areas. And I would ask myself a question: am I expanding, contracting, or coasting? And if the answer was coasting or contracting, I would say, good. What do I have to do between now and next Sunday so the answer will be expanding? So that was a structure that I put in place to hold myself to account, to keep a growth mindset everywhere. Not just, some people are growing professionally, but they have terrible relationships. Some people have great relationships and they're terrible with finances. How do you have the whole package working? And when I'm working with people as a coach, I'm interested in the whole package, having everything working, not just excelling in one area.
I couldn't agree more, Alan. I think when you are working on one piece and not the other, there's nothing that's truly separate, right? They intertwine. There's a cause and effect. There's congruency, but when there's deprivation in one, it tends to bleed to the next.
Totally. At the Henley Leadership Group, their mission is how to creating workplaces where all people thrive. And it doesn't just mean thrive at work. I'll work with someone and it's clear they need to take their health under, they need to get an action about their health. And sure enough, when they get an action about their health, it also impacts their performance at work, even though they weren't working on that.
Totally. It's like you can't, I was talking to someone this morning about how, what happens at work really will, and the culture and how you feel around chasing your goals and having wins will come home with you to a certain extent. And, and then I had another friend, it's just so funny because another friend of mine last week, he scaled and exited his business. And he said, Jim, how I understood culture was I'd have a annual event where all my employees would bring their spouse. And I spent the whole event talking to the spouses, not the employees, and asking them what they thought of the business, what they thought about their spouse's role. And that would really get me a clear picture on what conversations were going home and what perceptions were occurring in the office that got brought home.
That's brilliant. That's a great leader.
Yeah, I'm very grateful to, like you talked about, the people around you and the connection and the relationships. I'm very grateful to have great people in my life that are always pushing me and advising on things that I haven't experienced yet that are coming in the future. Like, I've got 2 little kids, so that's a lot of my conversations of what could I expect or what would you do different. But also just that day to day of, I'm trying to wrap my brain around this, and I'm struggling and just getting perspective from the right folks, the right relationships.
You said something which I just want to double down on. As someone who now has grandchildren, if I look back on my professional career, one of the things about where I worked for 32 years is I would work somewhere between 60 to 80 hours a week and be on the road, and family came second. And it's so clear to me now that businesses that want to thrive, they better make sure that they're setting their business up so that the folks have a good family life as well as a good work life, because when you got both going, it really, people then can thrive.
Totally.
And if the people are thriving, your business will thrive.
Yeah, it's almost like we talk about, wellness and recharge, and we forget that it might not be the next biohacking tool that comes out or sauna session. And I'm all for that. I was in the sauna this morning, right? And I think that's extremely important. But, what's the biohacking when it comes to the important relationships, when it comes to family, when it comes to what happens from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m.? And one of the things that I'm learning and navigating, and I'd love your opinion on it, is, making sure I'm standing in my own shoes, in my own feet when I am with family, when I am with, loved ones, because, this thing right here, right, the cell phone, it doesn't stop, and it never will, I don't think,
So I'll do 3 things about that. One, in 2017, I developed with an extraordinary coach. Her name's Carrie Zeller. It used to be Carrie Granger. Carrie Zeller is her name, and a man named Richard Dolan. And the 3 of us developed something we called the Performance Clinic. and it was a 2-day work clinic on how to be a peak performer. And we had athletes there, professional musicians there to tell their stories. But basically, we said there's 3 cycles that are part of the performance cycle. The first is preparation. The second is execution, performance. But the third is regeneration. So what are you doing after each performance cycle to regenerate? And all 3 are critical. Most people just focus on performance. No, what are you doing to prepare yourself to perform? And then what are you doing to stay focused so there's no distractions when you are performing? But then the last one is what did you learn? What worked? What didn't work? And then what do you do to recharge? And that's got to be daily. If you look at it, every day we're paid to perform. So what are we doing at the end of the day to recharge and regenerate? So that's one piece. And the second thing I'd share, I was coaching someone at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation who was a deputy director. And at the end of 6 months of our work together, he became the coach of his son's soccer team. And that was one of my biggest accomplishments as a coach in our engagement, was that he became a coach of his kid's soccer team and his performance at work did not suffer. And then third, working with someone else at Microsoft, and their assignment after our third session was to have at least 3 meals, 3 dinners a week with their family, and their phone had to be turned off because they were tied to that phone. And so we started simple, just 3 meals a week with your family where your phone is turned off. And that altered things. He got a promotion as well.
It's funny how that works,
Yeah.
Putting the things that mean the most, that allow you to recharge and regenerate. Yeah, yes. It's amazing. It's funny you bring up the phone because, I remember when texting was, the new hot thing several years ago. And I remember reading an article about we're instantly addicted to texting and driving, and people were dying and getting in car accidents. And they would say, put your phone in your trunk if you can't stay off of it.
That's right.
And that's always stuck with me because when I am going home, and I'm not perfect at this, it's a work in progress, but I'll put my phone downstairs in the closet. So that way, because, I'm generating ideas, things pop up. I want to write them down. I need to send this message. I need to respond to this LinkedIn. I need to, see if they emailed me back on this proposal to help them write their book, right? Whatever it is. And I'm type A. I want to take action. I want to move. I want to make it happen. And my wife is great at being like, hey, you didn't put the phone downstairs. And she's so elegant and how she says it, but I'm like, okay, got it. Yep.
That's great. Yeah. What I'll do sometimes is when I'll go out to dinner, I'll leave the phone at home.
Yep.
And my wife will say, where's your phone? I said, I'm leaving it at home. And sometimes I'll leave my watch at home as well. Not to be tied to the phone or to the watch, just to be here now with what's in front of me. I know the meal's going to be over. I know I'm going to go home after the meal. I don't need my watch to keep track of anything. I don't need my phone, just to be present. I've done 4 10-day silent meditation retreats. And on those retreats, you have to check your phone and your watch. So for 10 days, no phone, no watch. And you have all of these great ideas. You can't write any of them down. No pencil, no paper. Just be present and trust that the things that were important will be there at the end of the 10 days for you to pick up. And if they're not there, so be it.
Wasn't meant to be. It's 2 things with that concept. I absolutely love that. 10 days, Alan. You did 10 days. Wow.
4 times. And there's another one coming.
Let's go.
How it's good to electronic appliances. from time to time, unplug them. Let them reset. So this is a reset for your brain.
Back to the operating system, like the iOS system in your cell phone. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, we had a guest on, Warren Sturry, and as an adolescent, he had gone into the wilderness. His parents put him in a program. He's getting into a little bit of trouble, and he was there for 83 days.
Yes.
And it changed his life, and he's got this amazing program, Meriwether Academy, and that was his most impactful moment on the podcast.
Yes.
And you know, I've done in the past, you know, I do a lot of events, I speak a lot, but I host events, and I'll fly people in, and we'll do dinners and do it Jeffersonian style with 12 people. And some of my favorite events and dinners, we have everybody drop their phone in a little wicker basket when they come in.
Yeah.
And everybody complies because it's part of the rules, and I put the rules out, right, like ahead of time. But a lot of people get worried there, and they come up with these reasons, right? So like babysitter is going to call, or I've got kids, or my mom might call, right? And it's totally justifiable.
Totally.
But Alan, I've done 12 or 13 of these.
Yeah.
Not one person has gotten a phone call
Right.
in any of those dinners. And what we do, because I want to create a comfortable atmosphere where you're not thinking about that happening, is I put out my wife's personal cell phone number to all the attendees, and I say, give it to the babysitter, give it to your mom, give it to your cousin, give it to your brother, your sister. So that way there's a level of comfortability, and we can dial in, we can focus on navigating our dreams, our dinner, be with people present. So it helps reduce the stress. But I got to tell you, Alan, not one time has someone called my wife's cell phone number with an emergency.
And Jim's really smart, you know, because I do similar. And to handle people's fear, you got to give them something, or else then they're just going to be afraid the whole time and thinking, who is this jerk that's controlling me? So that you have that backup number that they can text to someone in advance. Hey, this is where to call if you need me. Then they can settle in. Brilliant.
Totally. Yeah, my wife was like, everybody's going to call me. I'm like, babe, no one's going to call. It'll be fine. If they do, just come grab me. Like, we'll handle it immediately.
Where are you? What part of the country are you in?
Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh, I see. Gotcha.
Yeah. So we have people come from all over, East Coast, West Coast, and of course, locally as well. So you get different culture, different perspective. And again, we want to create that comfortable atmosphere so we can dial in and we can focus. So it's been great to host them. It's been great to bring in certain people. You'd be a great person to bring in and share your knowledge with.
I was thinking, Jim, I love going to Nashville. Just you walk through the airport, and there's music playing. There's good food. I was working with a company that is headquartered there called Compassus, which does hospice care, and the executives are all located in Nashville. So I got to go there about 5 times over the course of 3 years. Yeah, great city.
It's a great place. Yeah, it's growing too.
Yeah.
So Alan, we talked a lot about that impactful moment. We navigated some of the lessons you've learned. What's something that you're focused on currently? What's something that you're sharing or teaching that could be impactful for the audience listening today?
It's great. You know, if you're on a growth trajectory, one of the key things right now that I'm focused on with people is, what are you doing to stay present, to be mindful? There's a woman named Ellen Langer out of Harvard, who was the first tenured female psychology professor. And she wrote a book on mindfulness. And she says, mindfulness is not meditation. It's not religious. She says that every moment you and I are either mindful or mindless. So I'm working with people of what are you putting in your calendar? What are you putting on your wall that's reminding you to be present? Because if you are committed to being the best you can be, but you're just stimulus response, just reacting, you could be off for 3 hours and not realize how far off course you've gotten. So I coach people on keeping meetings to 25 minutes or 50 minutes so they have a buffer between meetings where they can take a deep breath, they can center, they can get present, they can look at what went well, what didn't go well, so they're not just bleeding one event into the next. A second thing I'm working with people on is having a practice in the morning where they get centered and connected to their purpose. And then I have them thinking of phones. I have them look at their phone at all of the appointments they have for the day. And I have them imagine each one of those meetings or appointments, they were being their best self. It went really well, kind of like sports psychology, imagining the ball going into the basket before you take the shot, because that activates a neural pathway. So I imagine them going through the whole day, staying connected. At the end of the day, I have them end the day with reviewing their calendar. And I did well, good, I didn't do well, forgive themselves, so that when they go to bed, the day is complete and they're really regenerating and restoring and renewing themselves and getting open for inspiration rather than bringing their unresolved issues that they then have to have lousy dreams about. So that's a tip.
That's wild, because I was having a conversation the other day with someone who was talking about the most important part of the day is the emotion right before your head hits the pillow.
Totally.
And ensuring that you can, get good sleep and, allow yourselves to replenish, and thinking back on not what you didn't do, but did you take the time to reflect throughout the day rather than at that moment at night, right before you go to bed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Because it almost like piles up, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, I can't sleep, or I'm having anxiety or emotions that are negative. And then you kind of go into that theta state and drift off.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, Alan, but I want to think about good things when I go and have dreams and go to bed.
Yeah, exactly.
I love the 25-minute and 50-minute meetings. And I think it's really cool because a shorter 25-minute may only take 5 minutes to the next appointment. A longer 50-minute will take that 10 minutes to the next appointment for that reflection piece. So you're not only setting yourself up, but you're strategically setting yourself up based on the length and all the content or what you've digested throughout a longer meeting compared to a shorter meeting.
Yeah. And what some people are saying, those 10 minutes, stand up and stretch, do some jumping jacks, move your body, do something so you're not just in your head the whole day, but you're integrated.
I love it. What a great lesson. Yeah. Alan, with everything that you've experienced as we wrap up, everything that you've experienced, what's been the most helpful to some of your clients? What's something that always kind of comes back to your individual coaching clients, some of the companies? I mean, you work with people all over the world. You told me earlier today you're working with someone in Mexico. You were working with having a call in London. You're seeing all different cultures, all different businesses, industries. Is there anything that continues to pop up throughout a majority of your conversations that you might want to share with the audience today?
My client base is so varied, and they're at different stages of their life and of their leadership journey, that, the only thing that is the through line, it's because I make it the through line, not because it's what they're dealing with, is living true to your purpose and your values and being present. because that's the only way you'll know if you are living true to your purpose and your values, is if you're present. If you're on automatic, you lost that day, and your habits took over. And I think the other thing is it takes time. So I call it a practice. You need a practice. You need, and what do you do with a practice? You practice. It's no accident that the folks who go to the Olympics are the ones who practice the most. So I'm working with people to realize that, yes, you have a desire to change. Yes, you know what there is to change. And finally, it's going to take practice. Repetition, 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 period.
Show up over and over until you get to the point where
There's no shortcuts to the top of the mountain.
where you keep wanting to grow. Alan, what are your core values?
Transparency, honesty, equity. I want things to be equitable. Yeah. And being kind and caring. My theme for this year, every year, my wife and I and our grandkids and their parents go to Hawaii, and we sit down at the end of the year and we create our intentions for the next year. And we complete on our intentions for the year before, and we give ourselves a score on how we did. And they're ranging in age from 13 to 76. So this year, my intention is to be reliably kind, period. And that's what I've got my attention on this year, is being reliably kind. There's a lot of stuff going on around us on the planet and locally that can be activating and reactivating, and how to approach it in a kind way.
Well, thank you so much, Alan. And I definitely felt your level of kindness to join us on the podcast today, and just to impact the audience with your knowledge, your wisdom, your experiences. And I just want to say thank you for being here. And I look forward to having you on again in the future.
Great. It was my pleasure, Jim. Thank you very much.